Okay, now let's go into loops, for and while loops. So from the word loop, we already have an idea of what we're trying to work with. A loop is simply something that executes over and over and over again. So a loop in Python is simply a way to execute a block of code repeatedly, whether that is until a certain condition is satisfied or an iterator has gone over an iterable. We'll still get into that. So firstly, let's look at for loops quickly. So a for loop is used to iterate over an iterator. What does that mean? That simply means we are using an iterator. But what is an iterator? An iterator is simply anything that can be iterated over. Iterated over simply meaning that it has multiple values within it. It's not a single data type. So you can basically see an iterator, or rather an iterable is simply a collection, any collection that you can iterate over. Basically, it's not a single data type. Of course, if you convert a single data type to a collection, you can iterate over it. But basically, an iterable is a collection, something that can be iterated over repeatedly. So a good example of that is lists. Let's say we have a list of fruits. So these fruits have multiple values, right? It's a collection of values. So you can iterate through each one. So you can say apple, you can say banana. I don't know how to spell banana, but yeah, banana. And then we could say, let's say pineapple. Beautiful. So now we have our iterable. But what is an iterator? So as simply as possible, an iterator is something that can go through this iterable. And as it's going through it, it's being assigned a value for each iterable. It's taking on the value of each iterable, or each element in the iterable. So it's taking on the value of each element in this list. I don't know if that makes sense, but let's just look at that. So an iterator can be anything. Just think of an iterator as a temporary variable to hold on the value of each element in an iterable. So your iterator could be any letter you want. Your iterator could be I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P. Just know it's a temporary variable. So your iterable goes, or rather your iterate, sorry, I keep mixing them up. The English is hard. So your iterator goes over your iterable. So now we have gone through the parts of a for loop. What is the basic syntax of a for loop? So to give you an idea, the basic syntax of a for loop is for I, or rather sorry, for iterator in iterable, then you do something. That's your block of code. Keep in mind your block of code has to be indented under it. So that's very key. Your indentation simply tells Python that this belongs to this and this is what to be run if under this loop. That's what the indentation is for. It should never be on the same line. So keep that in mind. So how does that work? Let's try and let's try and print each fruit in this list. So how do we do that? We'll just follow the syntax. For this should be lowercase. For now we pick an iterator. Now, like I said, your iterator can be anything. Just know that it's a temporary variable. So it could be any letter, it could be a word. So just to be more succinct, to be explanatory, if you are dealing with a list, ideally your iterator should be the singular form of the name of that list. So you have fruits, and each of these are a fruit. So you could say for fruits, that's our iterator. In fruits, that's our iterable. I hope that makes sense. Then you're calling, then VS Code automatically indents for you. Now, what do you want to do? We're trying to get each member of this list, each item in this list. So let's print it. Let's print fruit. So how would this work? This will simply work by, first, it goes through this list sequentially. Remember, a list is an ordered collection. So first, this fruit variable is assigned the first member of this list, apple. It prints apple. Then it goes to the next member. This fruit list now has the value of banana, then prints banana, and then lastly it has pineapple, then prints pineapple. Then as soon as this list is exhausted, As soon as there's no more elements in this list to iterate over, the loop is terminated. The loop is cancelled. That's all with the loop. But how do we know? Let's check it out. Beautiful. So here we have printed it, and this is our output: apple, banana, pineapple, just like I explained. Just know that the iterator is taking on each value in the iterable one after the other, then executing code on it. Now, this is the basic this is basically what it is. This is basically how we use for loops. There's also something called type comprehension, or rather list comprehension to create lists, but I'm not going to get into that. That will probably be later. But 99% of the time, this is what you encounter in for loops. This is basically its use case, unless you want to use the range function. So let's quickly go over the range function. So we have a function in Python called range, and what it does is it helps you. It's an iterable. The range function, it acts as an iterable. So it returns something. It returns you specify a range, right? You specify a range. So let's say we want numbers between 1 and 6. Yeah, so the first number, that will be the start, and then the second number, that will be the stop, or rather the stop minus 1. Remember, Python is 0 indexed, so this 6, it won't stop at 6, it will stop at 6 minus 1, it will stop at 5. So you can print this is basically like a list. You can assign this to a list, but let's look at that. Let's look at what happens when we do this. Range 1, 6 for number, range 1, 6, print number. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this range is acting like a list. It's not exactly a list. It's not exactly a collection. It's just an iterable. It's something you can iterate over. It just gives you a list of numbers, right? A list of numbers within a specific range. So you could also specify a third argument. Argument is simply what you put into the brackets in a function, the range function. So you could specify a third argument that we called step. That's what's highlighted in blue. So your step is how many steps you are moving. So let's say you want to move two steps. So your first number would be 1. Then instead of going to 2, it would go to 3. It's counting in 2s. Then your third number will be 5 because it's counting in 2s. So let's look at that. 1, 3, 5. It's as simple as that. So this is basically what the range function does. It gives you a list of numbers, or rather a sequence of numbers within a range. So there's something that I wanted to say later or teach later called list comprehension. Let's just look at an example of that, and we'll probably go into in-depth later. So you could create a list. You could call it numbers is equal to, this is just an example of it. Is equal to a list. This is one way to do it. Range 1, 6, 2, or rather range 1 and 6. So let's just comment this out. How would we use type list comprehension in this? Now, we simply do value for value in range this. So this is an example of list comprehension. So what it does is it's like a for loop. It's like a for loop. It's like saying for number in range this, then you could have numbers dot append number. So let's look at both use cases. Now, this and these are virtually going to do the same thing. This and this are virtually going to do the same thing. But how would that work? Now we have an empty list called numbers. We have an empty list that's supposed to be called numbers. So this list is empty once we define it. But now we're iterating over each number in this range, which is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So for each number in this range, we are adding that particular number, which is this append function. We're adding this, or append method rather, we're adding this particular number to this empty list called numbers. That's basically what is happening here. We're adding this number to this empty list called number. So by the time this is done, this list will be fully populated. So let's print numbers afterwards. although we're having two lists with the same name, so that's no good. That's no good. So let's just call this numbers 1, and then let's call it, yeah, let's just leave it like this. So if we print numbers, beautiful, we have numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because the for loop went through every number in this range and then added it to this empty list, and now this list is fully populated. But we could also implement the same thing in a single line using list comprehension. So this is just like it's like a shorter version of this for loop syntax we saw here. So basically it's like saying for numbers in range this, for value in range, let's use number. Yeah, let's use number, just so it seems more succinct. So for here we are saying for number in range this, that's this line, and then we're not necessarily adding, we're not doing any append function here. We're just saying, hey, this number should be in this list for every number in this range. So it's the same thing that's happening here, but you do not need to call a method, and it's just one line. So it would give us the same output without having to declare an empty list and going through a for loop. That's the power of list comprehension. Beautiful. So we printed numbers 1 and we have the same output, the same list. That's basically what list comprehension gives you. Instead of having to write something like this, you could just write something like this in 2 lines or even 1 line. So it might seem a little bit complex, but just go over it again and you'd get the hang of it. So basically that's everything for loops in Python. That's everything for loops.